Welcome to the Parent Guide to GCSE podcast. Today's guest is Rachel Friedli, and she's here in her guise as the teen whisperer to talk about how to reconnect with your teen daughter.
Hello and welcome to the Parent Guide to GCSE podcast. We are here today with Rachel Friedli to talk about reconnecting with your teenage daughter. So first and possibly most important question, did I pronounce it right?
Yeah, you did.
Yes. Excellent. Do you want to do us a quick rundown of kind of who you are and what you do? Because I always find guests do this much better than I do.
Yeah, hi, I'm Rachel. I'm a mum of an 18-year-old teen daughter. So I totally get it about how you are, what it feels like to be in your shoes, even in English. So like you, I struggled. I didn't know what to do to make things better. And like you, I felt exhausted and useless at the end of the day. And none of the normal parenting strategies were working. The control, the taking over of our lives, the constant push of society, discipline or punishment. And there was an undertone in everything. And neither of us felt comfortable. So I found it easier to ignore her behaviour. And instead, we resorted to ignoring one another. So that's me, I suppose. I am the Teen Whisperer. And I run a community programme for mums with teen girls. Normally age 13 to 18, but obviously there's a bit of a flexibility in there. I also do one-to-one programs for mums, 1 to 2 programs with your teen daughter. Just booked my first ever retreat.
Ooh.
I also run for mums. Sorry.
Nice.
That's going to be awesome. Yeah.
And have a podcast called Teen Whisperer.
So it keeps you out of mischief.
Indeed. First question from me then is, with the teenage daughter, where did the first signs of problems occur? I'm only asking for the listeners, not for me personally.
Oh, right, okay.
With a 14.
Obviously.
Yeah.
A 14-year-old daughter. Yeah, I'm with you. As we just mentioned, kind of lockdown. There were some kind of little underlying things going on beforehand. So my daughter's kind of been through quite a lot of bullying in her school years, and we ended up pulling her out of school. She also has chronic ill health, so she's now got chronic fatigue, which had a knock-on effect, obviously, on her schooling. The question was why teen girls, wasn't it? No, why I started it.
When does it kick off? When did your daughter basically start kicking back?
Kicking off.
Yeah.
Yeah, lockdown when everything shut.
Yeah.
Because we'd moved up here at the end of January in that year.
Oh, wow.
So I had 6 weeks to get used to normality, and then it all went poof. Best way to put it.
Yeah.
It's a big challenge for anyone, let alone in a new place away from your friends, although wouldn't have made any difference with lockdown, but yeah, tricky. I think,
yeah.
I don't know whether we're perhaps just still in the sweet spot and it hasn't kicked in yet, or whether my efforts to, not be my mother have succeeded.
Yep.
And Paul's going, what if she listens to this? She might, and she will acknowledge that she was very strict and that she and I clashed a lot when I was a teenager.
Did she?
Did she? Really, really a lot. And so with Ellie and I, so Ellie's 14, I think, get along really, really well, possibly because we understand each other better. I know you clash with her more than I do, don't you? I think
because she doesn't tidy.
Well, and because I understand why she doesn't tidy, because we both have very wonderful ADHD brains, and ours are wired a little bit differently. And tidying isn't as a quick and simple process when your brain goes, yes, but we've got to do this and then this and then this and then this, and then we get distracted by shiny things and nothing happens. I think because I get her, I'm less inclined to get grumpy about stuff like her room, because I know what my room was like when I was her age. And see, mum, so it's okay, I can say these things because I will confess my faults too. But yeah, I think we're both wondering whether the other shoe will drop at some point and we'll suddenly get the kind of monster teenage drama queen that we hear so much about, that other people are contending with. So in your work, is there an age particularly, or is it just depends?
Depends on each individual teenage daughter's characteristics and personalities, as you politely just put it. Most are seen kind of 15 onwards, but it can start from 13. So therefore, your daughter is completely in those two ages, really. But interesting, you mentioned about the brain, about your ADHD brain. Did you know the teenage brain is completely different to the child brain and the adult brain? Did you know the teenage girl's brain is completely different to the male brain?
Do hope so.
Yeah, it's something we talk about as well, because because their brains are still developing.
Yeah,
you expect them to be able to use the rational part of their brain to make decisions, but that's not there yet. It's just,
no, exactly.
It's an unreasonable expectation. They're still very much fight or flight, and as you said, boys different to girls, so girls tend to mature that a little bit faster, but still not perhaps what we expect, because we look at it with our brain, don't we? And yeah, that prefrontal cortex isn't online into the mid-20s, so emotional stability, organization, timekeeping, obviously sorting out your bedroom. My daughter's the same. She's getting there.
About with girls here, not with boys. Or
we are talking about girls
later, I'd imagine.
I don't know about boys because I don't have a boy. Just as simple as that. So I can only do it for my personal story. Mid-20s, yeah, for girls and boys.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, a few things.
Yeah, all of that stuff you mentioned about her not tidying her room, it's because it's not there. That stuff to do in her brain isn't there. That organization, that timekeeping, that kind of like, oh, well, this is what I need to do before I do that, and that's what I need to do before that. We've got that brain, but they haven't. It's not there yet.
Yeah. Yeah, and
that's huge.
It's tricky because it's a massive cause of conflict. Stuff like that, particularly, being organized, being on top of stuff. Why have you left your homework till the last minute? All of that kind of thing. And I think it's easy to forget that it can't necessarily help it. But we feel like they should be able to use all the tools that we have to get ourselves organized. But that's not how it works. And different people react differently to deadlines. I need a deadline to get anything done. But equally, there are people who, with a deadline breathing down their neck, will just go, oh, I can't do it, I haven't got time, and have a giant tantrum about it instead, and not
and with the deadline comes perfection as well, doesn't it? And if you don't want to get it wrong, then a lot of teen girls don't bother trying because they've got that fear of failure. So they don't want to put themselves in that situation, so then it gets worse. But in their minds, they think it's avoiding the subject completely.
And whether that's consciously or not. And then on the other side of the coin, you've got the girls who have left it till the last minute because their brain doesn't realize it exists until the last minute, and then they'll go and they'll spend 5 hours, work until 2 a.m. to get it done. The teachers won't realize that they've left it till the last minute because they're perfectionism is something. I mean, quite often we see, I've been doing lots of research into ADHD in women and girls, and because it affects both Ellie and I, and that's one of the things that you quite often see in girls is perfectionism to cover up for that fact, because you're so worried about what other people will think and not put someone else down. That you will go far too far in the other direction. Make sure that it's just the best that it could possibly be. So it's why I think when she does tidy her room, when she does get in the zone, full on, it will be it'll be immaculate for about 10 minutes, but she will go far too far in the other direction. It's either end of the spectrum and nowhere in the middle.
I would be happy with 10 minutes.
I know.
You time it next time she does it then.
Well, I think her brothers, who are annoyingly 20, nearly 21, they have this opinion about, because they've kind of, their brains are far more developed and they're better at organising and being adults and all that kind of stuff. They're not quite there yet. Let's not get too carried away. But one of them will be like, well, how about she's tidied a room? How about do some time-lapse photography over the next 3 or 4 hours and just see how it works out? And it would be quite interesting because it would just be a kind of, but it would be shambles by the end of it. So
she has the same issue that I think you see when they're toddlers. When you send them up to tidy their room and they get distracted by a toy and you go up to them and they're just playing with that toy, they haven't got as far past that as we'd like to think, have they, as teenagers? So
no, teenagers are the next stage of the teenage. If the teenage tantrum is a toddler tantrum, so just viewing it that same way does help.
At this stage, I'm not seeing a huge difference between girls and boys in terms of what we're talking about, because I think they're probably, as teenagers, young teenagers, they're probably as bad as one another. One of the questions we've got is, I think it's probably an obvious answer, is why did you concentrate on teenage girls? But it's because you have your own teenager and you thought, therefore, I need to help her better. I'm going to research it.
Yeah. And I started researching down obviously the teenagers. And then I realized there was quite an obvious difference. Well, there's quite a big difference between a teenage girl's brain and the teenage boy's brain. And it is how they react to stress. So all that pressure, all that stress, all that constant kind of grading, all that constant expectations, pressure at school, pressures outside of school, self-pressure, all of that, boys don't view it as pressure as such. They view it as a way to get them forwards, whilst girls view it as a negative and then take it all on board to themselves.
Yeah,
that's the difference, is one that I see. And then finding that information is really, really hard. You've got to really dig to find this information. So then social media has an adverse effect, mainly on teenage girls, but also on boys as well. I know that. But it's just figuring out the differences of the brains. So it's just like, and it's not just the brains, it's a psychological development as well that people don't talk about, again, because of a teenager.
Indeed. So in terms of the kind of the main causes of those, I don't know, the teenage angst and stuff, we've talked about the clashes in terms of staying on top of things, being organised, bedrooms and that kind of thing. What are the other things you tend to see as being big points of conflict?
Big points of conflict, bear with me, can't remember.
It's that thing of being put on the spot, isn't it? I mean,
it is, yeah.
Our daughter gets that in school. If somebody asks her a question, your brain just kind of freezes, doesn't it? Because they're still in fight or flight, and so freeze, mind goes blank, you panic. And
you go, what the hell? And I've forgotten the question already, so that doesn't take me long, because I start reading and then I go, what? Okay.
I was talking about causes of angst.
Causes of
which is possibly a miracle.
Most of them causes of angst, isn't it, really?
Pretty much, yeah. Just the biggest points of conflict. I don't know whether there's.
So you're talking about conflict with parents or conflict within school?
I'm going to go with specifically between mums and daughters, because for me, I remember it was to do with my freedom and trust levels, and what I was and wasn't allowed to do. Because as an eldest child, I was, flying the flag for my siblings and pushing all the boundaries and stuff. And by the time it was my little sister, Mum was just like, that's fine, you can go clubbing, it's all good, just make sure you're home before 2, it'll be fine.
2?
Whereas I was battling, and it was all to do with me wanting to be more independent and more of an adult, and her pushing back against that and not letting me, I don't know, make the mistakes. And I totally get that now as a parent. That kind of, is that a big root cause, do you think, that push between independence and being looked after and looking after? I don't know how to explain it. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I'm just thinking that independence thing, that's quite a big issue, because there's a lot of being pushed on them to be independent, and yet actually our teen daughters actually need us more during the teenage years than they do at any other time in their lives. So they need us to be there. So they have that pushing back against us, but they also have that need that they want to know that they have a secure space at home. They have that, I call it a safe container, where they are boundaried, where they understand what you will and will not tolerate, behavior-wise, mood-wise, whatever wise. It's also about kind of like, lost my thread again, that doesn't take much. Really doesn't take much.
The whole knowing what to expect, it makes sense and it resonates. I mean, if you had a boss, for example, who some days would come in and be sunny and delightful, and other days would come in just like rage and clearly hadn't had their coffee that day, and you didn't know which one you were going to get, it makes it really difficult to know how to behave and what to do. And as a parent, it can be difficult. I mean, certainly as a woman, I know occasionally that my hormones may get the better of me in terms of my mood and stuff like that. Paul is very, very wisely staying very quiet.
Very quiet. Yes.
I have no comment.
But I know that that's the case, and I now will warn Paul, just like, it's just avoid me today. I'm fine.
Yep.
You're fine.
Yep.
It's all good. Just avoid me. And so perhaps having that conversation with your teenager as well to explain why you're a little bit more snappish than usual is possibly useful, because she's going to be going through the same stuff. And heaven help us all if you've synced up and you're both irrational and moody and rage filled at the same time.
But that goes both ways, doesn't it? You're talking about how you tell me or how you tell Ellie that I'm a bit grumpy. Best. You know, really, I love the sort of the heads up, as it were. But I figure from a teenage girl point of view, if there's that conversation where there's an understanding that it goes both ways, you know, if she's not in a great space, just explaining, you know, hormonally, just, you know, give me 24 hours, I'll be fine. I'll come back down to earth. That's a pretty positive conversation, I would have thought, because at least you all know where you stand. So
and as you were saying, it then helps with the safe space, knowing that you're knowing what to expect, knowing what the boundaries are, knowing what you can and what you can't do, and what you can and can't expect from your parent as well. So that makes a lot of sense. Making sure that that's the kind of environment she can come back to.
One question I was going to ask about, one of the things we talk about a lot is the phone and the internet, or pretty phone with the internet on it, and how they are constantly, male or female, but probably more so female, just glued to their phones. What's the best advice for us as a parent to try and sort of get a word in edgeways? Because when they're staring and you're trying to have a discussion about something, you're trying to talk about school, you're trying to talk about revision, for example, and they're just glued in, locked on. Any advice around that?
Sorry. Loads
Where
of
do I
advice.
start?
If you want to have a conversation with them, and I'm just thinking, have you read my recent blog? Because this is exactly what it was talking about. It was literally so my daughter is constantly on a screen. As I say, she's 18. She's still home educated. She's out of college. She's at home, but she's doing bits and bobs at home. She's got her earbuds on. And therefore, there is no way of gaining that connection with her, no way of getting into that. So what I actually do is I put my hand gently on her leg. I'm going to use my hand because obviously you can't see my legs. Gently on her leg, so that she can feel you there, and she can feel the warmth, and she knows something is going to go on. Obviously, I have discussed this with her beforehand when she's on. So it's about putting these guidelines in place. It's about putting these boundaries in place, that actually, if you want to access her, that's what you do. Because then she can feel it and she can go, oh, there's a feeling on my leg. And then she looks up and she's like, okay, I can see you. You want to talk to me. Takes her earbuds off, puts her iPad down, and therefore we can have a conversation. If you slap her, however, she'll jump out of her frigging skin and she will literally let rip at you because you've made her scared. So that's not the way to go forward with it. But yes, social media is part of our lives. And I know there are good points of social media, but unfortunately there are a lot of negatives. And having watched the programme of Molly Russell this afternoon, which I didn't even know existed, some people see on iPlayer, I know it's needed. Just being aware of the negatives that it has, especially on our teen girls. So they're just emerging into finding out who they are and who their new body shape is. And as they scroll constantly, they're getting that input of they're not good enough. And also those algorithms, which is a word I never, ever expected to even know what the hell it even meant. Well, I still don't really know. Or even to bring it into a podcast or anything, is about as soon as they click on something, the software behind it figures out that's what they're interested in, will inundate them constantly, time and time again. And I know as a parent, when I've been on my phone or well, it's not on my phone, I take it off there. It's on my iPad. So if I check it, I'm like, after about 5-10 minutes of being, you've got it, you've been inundated again with more and more of the same stuff. And you're like, but I can switch off. But they don't have that awareness. They don't have the brain to be able to go, okay, I need to switch off. I need to come away from this. They just get hooked, and they can literally go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and now the next. They've lost all sense of time. They've lost all sense of their organization, back down that prefrontal again. They've got no idea what's going on. So yeah, it's about putting boundaries in place. It's not about taking her phone away, because that will be the worst thing ever, because especially teen girls, they are connected to their friends on their phones. So it's about working with them. And I know that's really, really hard, but it is about working with them to put things in place, to put boundaries in place, so then they feel safe. It's asking them and it's also got to be something, before I go into the asking bit, that you mirror the behavior you want to see in them. I got that the right way around. Yes, I did. So if you say to them, right, I want you off your phone by 9:30 at night, but you're still on your phone, she'll be like, well, what the hell? Why are you on your phone? That's not on. Yeah. So then you need to put your phone down at 9:30. You need to turn it off, switch it off, whatever, put it down, charge it. But she needs to be able to see that what you're doing is what she needs to do. Because that's where confusion comes in. That's where absolute kind of like mental kind of breakdown goes on. She doesn't know what's happening.
Indeed. And then you were talking about asking her. I was talking about asking her what she would like, or what she needs, or words that affect. So asking her what she needs rather than what she likes, because it's about coming up with what's the word I want? An agreement, a plan as to what she would like out of the situation as well. So we came up with a plan the other week, because we got really fed up when my hubby came home from work and you would be having a conversation with him, but his arm would be down here, fiddling with his phone, looking at his phone, what he thought subtly, but it's like all of his attention is down there. It's not here, it's not with me. So when we're talking to one another, the phone is down, the screen is down, we don't have it. When we're out and about, we don't take screens with us. When we're out and about as a family, there is no screens. We're making sure we don't have that time. And actually, I have a screen-free day every week. And initially, she wanted to do it as well. It's not quite working at the minute, but hey, but the more she sees me off my screen, I think it can only help her. So we just need to mirror our behaviours to what we want to see out of them. Yeah, it's true. And there are lots of things you can set up on your phone. Focus is certainly on the iPhone. I'm not sure the equivalent on Android, but that let you limit what you see at certain points, depending on what's useful at that stage. For
revision purposes is really cool, because they're supposed to be revising and a message flashes through. There's only one winner in that, isn't there? So everything on your phone is designed to keep you coming back. That's the whole point. It's all the pings and the likes and the messages. It triggers that little rush of dopamine. And
I was about to say that. And did you know that actually holding a phone in your hand still gives you that rush of dopamine, even though you're not looking at it?
Wow.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
It's as addictive as apparently crack cocaine.
Oh, wow.
Does not surprise me.
It takes me back to my time as a teacher, where no phones in schools, very clear, should not have them in the classroom, shouldn't even be in the school, let alone in your bag and what have you.
Yep.
And there's always somebody in the classroom who's sitting there staring at their crotch, trying to really subtle about the fact that, and it's boy or girl, it's like, I know what you're doing. I did not come down in the last shower. Any attempt by a teenager to pretend that they are kind of focusing on the conversation with the parent or with the teacher, never works. They need to put it down and put it away, or put it. And we say when revising, put it outside the bedroom door. Don't hand it over to a parent, because that causes conflict. But just outside the bedroom door, or wherever you're revising's door, is the best way, because you've got control over. The teen has got control over it, but they can, once they've done the half hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is, they can go and catch up with the world, and then go back to work if that's their plan. So
it's worth noting that you may, as a parent, need to support them with that, because that decision, until it becomes a habit, that's still executive functioning. That's the bit in prefrontal cortex that makes decisions, organizes things, prioritizes things, gets you started on tasks and so on. And it's the bit that doesn't function very well when you have ADHD. So when you, as you said, you're starting to scroll on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, it's designed to keep you scrolling, and it can be really difficult to break out of that, because that requires your brain to make that decision to have executive function, and you don't always have that as a teenager, because, as we've talked about, brain's not quite there yet. So
I do like the idea, though. You're talking about, you know, if you demonstrate the behavior, so you're off your screen as well. If they are wanting to revise and you agree that put the phone outside the door, put your phone with it, you can't see it, they can't see it. Everyone's equal here. And after half an hour, when they're finished, or 40, whatever it is, you can both go and, you know, catch up with the world. I quite like that as a plan. It shows solidarity in the
it shows trust and respect between you. It builds it.
And the other thing you mentioned was the self-esteem kind of thing, the feeling not good enough. I saw a video the other day that someone had shared, and it was a woman just stood there like, this is my normal body. She was in a kind of like jumpsuit type thing. This is what my body looks like. However, I can press this button to do this filter, and suddenly her hips had just kind of gone zoop and shrunk. And then she did another one for her waist, and then she just kept adding the filters in, and it was terrifying, the difference. So she was just going, so this is me, this is what I could be, this is me. And she was like, I can move around, and it was scarily good at carrying all of the different options with her on the video. And I don't think they necessarily realize that's something that is a capability on a smartphone now. So the people you see on Instagram looking all perfect all the time.
And that's not a reality either, is it?
We were talking when we first hopped on, I think there might be a Zoom filter on, because I'm not sure I normally look this kind of fabulous, feeling fabulous today. I think we might have ticked the whole Zoom touch-up filter thing. And again, that's something you feel like you're on a video chat with someone and you're seeing their real face, but not necessarily. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and that's got to be really challenging. I can't imagine, having grown up looking at all of that. Magazines were bad enough.
Yeah, exactly. At least with a magazine, you could put it down or you could throw it out the window. If you didn't want to read it, you could burn it. You can't really do that with a smartphone, can you?
No.
And everyone's got one.
Yes. Indeed. And that's the other thing. If you then don't have yours, that then makes you the social outcast or whatever. If you're the one person who's not utterly addicted to whatever it is. And it causes dramas and all sorts, which we get to hear about vicariously now, don't we, through the kids?
Indeed.
Goodness.
Now, just going back to your podcast, which you mentioned earlier, and we'll put the link in the show notes to your website, which has got the blog podcast on it. But peer orientation sounds really interesting. Could you just give us a quick headline, and obviously people can go and listen to your podcast and find out more about it, but what is it?
What is it? It's peer pressure. It's the English way. It's peer pressure. Bear with me, I'm just finding it. It's about society and education. There's a bit of education's fascination with teenagers needing to be with their friends 24/7, because what we said about earlier about they need to be independent from you, they don't need to be with you, stuff like that. And a lot of that is coming from society and culture. And they say that they need to be with their friends rather than us as parents. But the little known result of this is increasing anxiety, escalating mood swings, aggressive outbursts, which results in disconnection with your teen daughter. And if you're not in the right relationship, and by that I mean she doesn't come to you first with any problems, then it's going to affect all of your parenting. She starts to get pulled away from her friends more and more, and you start to see that she doesn't want to hang out with you as much as you'd like.
And I think that brings me to, how do you have any tips for how to be the person that she wants to come to first? Because I know that, you know, there are certain difficult things that your teenager might want to come and talk to you about, and your initial response as a parent, your gut reaction might be to freak out or to panic or to whatever it is. But obviously, if you do that, she's not going to come to you first with it next time, because she's not going to want to handle that. So any tips for just reining that in?
I think that,
Yeah, it's not an easy
Yeah.
one, no.
This
it's
sounds
not
like-
an easy one.
This sounds like a question from about 20 years ago. I'm just guessing.
No, it's something we get asked surprisingly often, actually. Just how do I make sure that I can listen calmly when they want to tell me about something, so that they will come and tell me about something? Because, you know, whether it's them or whether it's a friend who's having a crisis, you know, it could be something really significant, and you know, how do you make sure that you do it right? Because we always feel like we're doing it wrong, don't we?
Yeah. In a way, I'm just trying to think how to put this. The best way is literally to sit down with her, whether that means you're on one side of her bedroom door and she's on the other side of it. Doesn't matter. She knows you're there. She can feel you. She can feel your presence. And that just helps to regulate her heart rhythm. It gets her back online, gets that parasympathetic nervous system working. Not asking too many questions, not asking a big wishy-washy question, let's put it like that. Being quite specific with your questioning as to what's going on for her. So, like, in other words, how was your day is too big a thing for her. So she's struggling and there's a lot going on for her, then she's not going to be able to go tell you because there's too much. And she doesn't know which one to kind of pull out and which one to talk to you about, and which one not to talk to you about. So maybe if you know that there's something going on for her, ask specific questions on that topic. So, for example, the other week, my daughter was having issues online and she brought to me a problem. And she sorted it out herself. But I said to her, how did it work? How did you get on top of it? And she specifically told me exactly what was going on for her. So I already knew about that. But if you don't know about something, but you have that feeling that something's going on for her, just keep telling her that you're here for her and that you're ready. You're whatever is going on for her, you're here for her, whatever is going on for her. And if she keeps hearing that, she will then begin to think, okay, Mum's still saying that. Maybe I can trust myself to go and talk to her. And actually just changing the way that you speak to her as well. So what do you need rather than what would you like me to do? Because that's too big a wishy-washy question again. So what do you need allows her to tune into how she's feeling, and then she can go, actually, I just need a hug. And just having that connection really, really helps. The other side of it, flip side of it, is something people don't necessarily think of, especially us as mums, is putting yourself first and making sure that you do stuff for yourself first. Then you have the energy and the headspace to be able to focus on your teen daughter. If you constantly leave your needs to the end of the day, you're knackered, you're exhausted, you're fed up, you're looking confused.
No, I just we were talking about it the other day, and it's just it's to do with when you're on an airliner and they do the safety briefing. Always put your mask on before you help your child, because otherwise, if you're not right, you can't effectively help your child, whatever. So
By
the time you fought to put that mask on your child's face,
I was looking confused. So I couldn't remember where we were talking about
we were discussing. So I had my ADHD assessment yesterday. And made the decision to go private for it because the waiting list where we are is like 3 years, I think, for adults, longer for children. And so Ellie and I went on the waiting list at the same time. And I was saying, there's no way I can justify doing the private assessment for me, although it's like 4 times the cost for her, which is insane.
Sorry, it's 4 times the cost for her?
Yeah, so it's where the place I went, £360 for an assessment for an adult, £1,200 for an assessment for a child. I know.
Oh my giddy aunt.
Exactly. And I was thinking,
21.
And I was thinking, well, I can't do that. I can't put my needs before her needs. That's ridiculous and selfish and awful. And then we realized that actually, because at the moment I'm a little bit on the rubbish side and hormones and ADHD are not a good combination, that actually, if I could get my stuff in order, if I can get myself diagnosed and medicated so I can be a little bit more straight line and a little less bouncing off all the walls, then I might actually be a better parent and be in a better place to support her with her stuff. as opposed to trying to wait and do it the other way around. So yeah, it's absolutely exactly what you said. It's not doing the thing that we're told we're supposed to do in society and put our children's needs first, and we'll suffer and we'll what have you, because actually that doesn't make you the best parent you can be. And sometimes you do have to model the behavior that, as you said,
that's exactly what you have to do.
So if they see you putting yourself last and never taking care of yourself and stuff, then they're going to learn that that's what you do. You fight on through and you just
exactly. You just grin and bear it, and you carry on giving these vibes that or telling people that you're fine, in inverted commas. I could say what that word means, but I'm behaving. But they can feel that something's wrong. But then they'll hide their emotions, they'll hide their feelings when they're feeling absolutely dire, and all that does is just escalate the situation when they do kick off. Because it becomes this massive red rage where they've got no control out of. And I've been on the receiving end of those red rages way too many times, and I would get physically hit and verbally aggressive. She would get verbally aggressive towards me, and she would physically hit me, and she had no idea at the end of it. But that's because she had pushed those feelings down, because we're told that time and time again.
Yeah. So it's about making sure they've got an outlet, and that you're modeling how to have to do that, and that we don't do that ourselves, that we don't then pull it up and then lose the plot, because we've all had our moments, because we're human, and that's
exactly
happens.
Exactly. We're human beings, not human doers as well. So I devised, or I designed, a disconnection to connection roadmap, which is 4 simple steps. So it's literally, the foundation is you, which is exactly what we just talked about, self-care. So understanding what's going on for you. So a lot of my mums are in that perimenopausal stage or menopausal stage. I've gone through it early, but hey ho. So they're in that stage. So understanding what's going on for them. And it's on understanding what's going on in their brain, what's happened in their way they were parented in their childhood, because a lot of that we bring forwards, as you mentioned earlier. And then the second step, that's the first stage. But without that foundation stage, it's like building your house. If you don't have that foundation, your house is going to fall over. So all the time we're told with traditional parenting strategies that you just have to fix your daughter's behaviours and not worry about anything else. But actually, we need to take a step all the way back to you. So as I say, that's the foundation. And then the second stage is understanding what's going on for your teenage daughter. So as I say, that's her brain, that's her development, that's going on. That is those words, hormones, that does come in there a little bit. It's understanding about the whole push-pull, as we talked about earlier, the counter will, everything is in there. So it's a massive topic, understanding. And then you go on to communication. So it's understanding how to communicate. And then, of course, the last stage is connection. But without that first stage, you can't build on the rest.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that I was going to ask, how do you go about, if parents are listening, mums who have had that clashing that's been happening and they don't know how to fix it. I was going to ask how they get back, but that makes a lot of sense. That roadmap of just kind of step by step. You can't wave a wand and instantly fix it.
No, there's a lot involved. Hell of a lot. It's not one thing, because that's what we're regularly told. Oh, just fix your daughter's behaviours and it should be fine. The thing is, when we're looking at our daughter's behaviours, we're looking at them as the child they were before and that connection we used to have. Of course, as a teenager, you're pushing out of being a child. You want to be an adult, but you're not quite sure where you are or who you are or what's going on for you. So you're stuck in this kind of like stage. That's the best way of putting that.
No, I think perfect. That's how I remember it feeling.
Exactly. The last question was the top 3 tips for reconnecting, but I think you've just given us 4 tips there, which is kind of perfect. So any other questions? So I realise we've taken up probably the full 45 minutes now. So I've got a question down here. I'm going to ask it because I've seen this from my research earlier. Topics of dogs and cats living together. It's totally random. Can they?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Paul may have an ulterior motive here.
Just asking.
It's strange because I've got here on the question, Emily needs to hear that it's possible.
Ah, interesting. Uh-huh.
Anyway,
I've got 2
I
cats and a dog.
digress. I'm not
There you
allowed
go.
one because neither of us are particularly early getter-uppers, apart from the school run, and apparently dogs need walking, and I can't.
Well, also, at least one of our cats would eat a dog, regardless of the size of the dog. He would just, that would be it.
He's slightly aggressive.
Interesting one.
He would he would not tolerate there being, he had enough trouble with another cat who's fairly independent. If there were a dog who wanted to pay him attention all the time, he'd just kill him.
It's all right. My cat, my boy cat, so it's called Sky, put his claws in Maisie backside one year, or just
nice.
after we got her. So literally after that,
yeah.
she doesn't really go that close to him now.
Yeah.
Strange that. I wonder why.
I'm not sure you're helping my cause here, but you know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, sorry. She loves him.
Anywho, I have digressed. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other?
No,
any further?
I think I've
Covered
all
really,
my questions.
really appreciate your time, because obviously as parents of a teenage daughter, there's quite a lot in there for us to unpack and understand, and it's all very helpful. So thank you very much for your time.
Indeed.
That's all right. No problems. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Parent Guide to Education podcast. Please favourite or follow us on your preferred podcast app to ensure you get notified as each episode is released. We'd also be grateful if you could leave us a great review or rating. See you on the next episode.